Hello, I'm going to be demonstrating how to create a weighted random number system using multi-param blocks. So the end result looks like this. You can see we can set our clusters and control the weights up here. Next up. So let's get started. First thing you need is geometry to operate on. So I'll just create a rubber toy and scatter some points. And the first thing you want to do after that is drop down an attribute wrangle and set this to detail. And the reason we set it to detail is because we're going to be storing values. So I'll just call this store vals. We're going to be storing values into an array, but first we need to create those values. So I'll create a null. I'll call this controller. I'll use Z to change the shape, C to change the color, and I'll just edit the parameter interface now, make these invisible. I'm going to create a folder for the multi-param block. I'll call this clusters, and clusters. Inside, I want one float value. I'll call this weight and weight. I want another float value outside that's called seed. And then I want a color parameter inside. And with values inside the param block, I like to add underscore at the end because when you go to create them, it will append the index value to the end. So now the first thing we want to do is create an int called num_clusters. So this is just going to tell us how many clusters we have. And this is equal to a channel integer that is on the controller. So we call this, it was on the controller, and it was called clusters. So this should return a value of 3. And if you wanted to see, you could just copy the parameter and paste it here. You just need to convert this to an int and remove the dash marks. So after this, the first thing is to create empty arrays. So we're just going to create a weights array and a color array. And after this, we're going to loop over the clusters. So for int i's equal to 0, I is less than number of clusters, increment by 1. First thing we need to read in the weight value. So float weight is equal to the float channel on the controller, which is called weight. And if you notice, we added the underscore because it's weight underscore 1, weight underscore 2. So we're just going to add the I value, but we need to add 1 to it because this loop starts at 0, whereas the multi-param block starts at 1 when incrementing. And last, we need to convert this into a float value or into a string value using into string. So I'll read in the weight and to read in the color now. Do vector color. When reading in color, you need to read in each channel separately as far as I know. So the R channel will be a float. So controller / color. And if we go back and look at the controller, the naming convention is color 3R. I guess I must not have put an underscore. Under here, I can go ahead and change that now. It should be color underscore 3R. Yep. So color underscore, same thing we did before, into string I plus 1. And then we'll just add R to it. And then this is going to be a vector, so we're just going to place this inside the set, which will convert the 3 values into a vector. So R, G, and B. So this is returning an error. Just Alt E to expand. And I just forgot semicolon. And something more. Plus string. Shouldn't have a comma right here. Okay. So after this, first actually we need to append these to the arrays. So just use append the array weights, append the value weight, append to the array colors with the value color. And then now I just want to write these out. So we're just going to say f at weights is equal to weights v at colors is equal to colors. All right, so now that's done. If we go ahead and check the geometry spreadsheet, you can see that our arrays live right here. Next, we want to drop down that point wrangle. And this is where we will do everything else. So in here, the first thing that needs to happen is that we read in the values we just wrote out. So float weights is equal to detail, 0 for the current geometry and the name of the attribute, which is weights. Same thing for the color. So vector colors is equal to detail, 0, and colors. After this, we want to create a random value. So float rand is equal to the random function. We're going to read in the float value, which is the seed we created. So lives on the controller. So /controller /seed. And then we're going to multiply this by the point number. So every point has a different random value. And after that, we just want to use the sample discrete function, which will give us the weighted numbers or the weighted indices. Sample discrete, so it takes an array of all the weights. So for us, that's the array weights, and then a random value. So that's the random value we just created. Put on an S there, and after this, we can just write the color using VEX is equal to colors, with the index being the value we just created right here. So they're all white, but if we were to go ahead and set some colors here, change the weights, and set the seed, you can see this is the result we get. And just to get the end result that I had, I used a pretty simple method of this, where you just fuse the points together, basically reduce the clustering, and then you transfer the color back out, which gives you a result like this. And that's all. Hope this was helpful.